Hi, welcome to the latest in Digital Spy's video reviews, this time looking at Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, the Ted Bundy movie starring Zac Efron. I'm Ian, taking a break from Marvel movies to discuss this new film, and I'm joined by...
Laura, who's not taking a break because all I write about is true crime.
Do you remember the night we met?
So the film largely takes place from the viewpoint of Bundy's longtime girlfriend, Liz Kendall, played by Lily Collins in this film, who will also be seen in cinemas this month as the girlfriend of J.R. Tolkien, so that's a hell of a double bill. And it largely takes place around the Ted Bundy's first court case, which was the first in history to be televised.
Which I never knew, by the way, until I watched, Ted Bundy tapes, which is by the same director, which I think Ian was going to say, so I've literally just jumped in and stolen his
It's all right.
piece of information. But yeah, I never knew that they televised that case for the first time, which just seems really crazy.
I just think it's become such a common thing now. We just see it so many times from US trials, and that is certainly, we'll get into a bit more, but that's kind of the aspect of the film that jumped out the most for me, because it is Ted Bundy as a celebrity, pretty much, which whether you like it or not is a different thing.
Well, obviously, growing up in the era after Ted Bundy, and obviously in a completely different country, we're coming at it from the point of view of, we know that he's a serial killer, we know that he was this awful person. So actually to get that kind of snapshot of what he was at the time and how lauded he was and how people actually loved him, it was really uncomfortable to watch, but it was also kind of fascinating to see that he kind of built up that persona and people saw him in that way.
Yeah, and how do you feel it as a counterpoint to the Ted Bundy tapes? Because as you say, the director, Joe Berlinger, did both. This film came after the Ted Bundy tapes. But do you feel they complement each other? Do they work well together?
Yeah, 100%. I would definitely recommend anybody that hasn't watched the Ted Bundy tapes but that's interested in the film. They complement each other so well, and I think it's definitely worth watching both. The Ted Bundy tapes does an amazing job of keeping it obviously really factual. It is a documentary, so it goes through, it uses archival footage from news reports and interviews with people that, detectives that were hunting him down, and all of these different people that were involved in the case in some way. So it does a really good job of kind of painting that factual picture. And then I think the film comes at it from a completely different perspective and kind of gives you the emotional and psychological side of it and how he impacted the people in his life.
Will the defendant please rise?
For years, I've carried this guilt that I'm to blame for everything. If only I hadn't trusted you.
Promise you'll never leave me, Liz.
The first trailer came out, there was a bit of backlash towards that element, because they were with Zac Efron, who broke through with High School Musical and has largely played nice, loving, charming characters on screen. There were complaints that the film glorifies Ted Bundy, which I feel it really doesn't do.
No, not at all.
It very much shows how he manipulated people and how he could be seen as this charming individual. And Zac Efron himself is fantastic, I feel, in that role, because he's completely chilling, but also you can see how it works. It doesn't mean you empathise with Bundy, because the movie never comes close to that for me. But it shows just how how he played the media, how he played that courtroom to believe that he hadn't committed all these hideous crimes.
100%, and it makes you think that if you, as a woman, was to come across this man who was charming and quite publicly acknowledged that he was very attractive at that time, and
strong knitwear game as well.
Oh my goodness, the fashion! I love a roll neck jumper, and he honestly had the best wardrobe in that film. But that's a whole other topic for another day. But it just makes you question how much you might be drawn into that and potentially become a victim, and how easy that is. The whole idea is that it's not scary, dribbling, terrifying, creepy men that are committing murders. It's actually Joe down the road who you never suspected, who's got a law degree, and no
Joe that lives anywhere near Laura. Just want to point that out for legal reasons. Not that.
How do you know?
The part that was pretty much my one complaint about the film is, even though it is told from Liz Kendall's point of view, as good as Lily Collins is, I didn't feel like you really got to know her necessarily. It kind of sidetracks her a bit when it comes to the trial part. But was there something that bothered you, or do you feel it still does show?
That didn't jump out at me when I saw the film. I very much felt for her. I thought that she was just as much of a victim as a lot of other people that came across Bundy. She was manipulated by him. I've started reading the book that the film is based on, and it's very much written from the point of view that Bundy is at the forefront and centre of everything that she's kind of thinking about and feeling. So I feel like they carried that on into the movie, and that's kind of why it was all about him rather than a bit more about her, because I think she saw so much of her identity as being him. So I kind of think that's why they maybe went down that route. But I thought she was incredible. I've never actually seen her in anything before, so that was my first experience of Lily Collins on the big screen.
It was a good one. You've seen it twice.
Yeah,
So.
I've seen it.
But, you know, he's also really dreamy.
There are things you don't know that will shock you beyond your worst nightmares.
It's all a lie.
It is a capital murder case.
And if you haven't seen the Ted Bundy tapes, for me, what stood out is that a lot of the film is factual. I'd say like 90% is exactly what happened. So he really did escape from a courtroom twice. The second time was prison.
Well, yeah,
Twice
but he
straight.
escaped twice.
He escaped twice,
That
and there
is-
are other moments. Some of it, like where he stares down a dog, probably didn't happen in real life.
Yeah,
and
that
the dog
bit.
sensed who he was, but no one else did.
No.
That probably didn't happen, but there are a lot of things, and you spotted a lot of things in Efron's performance as well.
Yeah, so there was one moment specifically in the Ted Bundy tapes, the documentary, where they showed an interview that obviously was shown on television at the time.
From prison, I believe, wasn't
Bundy
it? Yeah.
from prison. I think it was while he was working on the case, because he was a lawyer. Well, he wasn't a lawyer, but he was given the right to kind of help the lawyers with his own trial, which in itself is just unprecedented, I think. But he was talking to the TV crew about his innocence and trying to get this TV reporter and the nation on his side in that. And he was, the little tics that he had on his face and the movements he was doing with his beard and that kind of thing, like Zac just nailed it. It was almost like frame for frame.
Yeah,
Which was really eerie.
Yeah, and the other thing that will stand out, I feel, from a fact point of view, is the judge in the final trial, who in the film is played quite weirdly by John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Of like
I
superstar
did not like that
casting.
judge. I'm just going to put that out
But the
there
judge
now.
in real life was like that. He was saying things like, "It's a shame that he didn't meet Ted Bundy in a different environment than on court," which, when you're watching the film, it just feels stranger than fiction. It feels like it didn't happen.
This is a convicted murderer who this judge
Not
is...
that time.
No, he was.
Oh, no, yeah, it was in the side of thing.
So he's just delivered the guilty verdict, this judge, and he's just sentenced this man to death, so going to death row, and he says that he really wants him to know that he feels no animosity towards him and that he thought that he showed a lot of humanity, which I think is just absolutely shocking.
But did happen.
It did happen.
This case is about catching a monster.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am that innocent suspect.
You are skating on thin ice, partner.
It feels like a different kind of true crime biopic. It's doesn't show all the killings, which is a good thing, definitely, and it purely focuses on the psychology of Ted Bundy. So it's not perfect, it's got flaws, but you won't have seen one like this before, at least not for me.
No, I agree. I think there potentially could be a bit of criticism for the fact that it doesn't depict kind of the murders and the terrible things that Bundy did.
You don't really see the victims.
You don't
at all.
really see the victims that much, but then I think that's actually what makes it so compelling and so interesting, is that it actually looks at it from, as you've said, the psychology aspect of it, rather than look at all the murder. Because that's not really what anybody needs to see.
No, for sure.
And it's the less interesting route, I think.
What do you say we get out of here?
What is it about this guy? When I feel his love, I feel like I'm on top of the world.
There are things you don't know.
Hi, officer. I think I must be lost.
Really, just overall, I think it's a really compelling watch, and whether you're familiar with Ted Bundy or not, I think it's definitely worth seeing. But I would definitely also watch the Ted Bundy tapes along with, because they really do complement each other and show kind of a complete, well-rounded picture of everything that happened. And
Maybe not in one night though. Might be a bit weird
Well,
dreams if you do it in
I
one night.
binged the whole Ted Bundy tapes in one night, and I am telling you, I did not sleep because that man was creepy. But I think that's why people are so drawn in to conversation around him, because I don't really know of any other serial killers or criminals that have kind of really fit the profile of what Bundy was and how he kind of got away with it for as long as he did.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation's going to keep on going,
Yep. And
rightly or wrongly, around him.
yeah, and that conversation will continue when the film goes on Sky Cinema and selected cinemas in the UK from now. You might think it's on Netflix, but it's only on Netflix in the US, I'm afraid, due to a deal, and it probably won't come on Netflix in the UK, at least not for some time. So check it out on Sky Cinema and selected cinemas.
The killings were extremely wicked, shockingly evil, vile.
Did you do these things, Ted?
This is all gonna end.
It's only gonna end with the truth.
Head to digitalspy.com for further discussions on the film, especially on the very final scene in the film, which, as both me and Laura know, you'll want to
Spoilers.
talk about. Spoilers on history, but it didn't really happen that way. It does, but there's plenty to talk about around that. And make sure you subscribe to our channel for more video reviews in future. Thanks.
Thanks.